G'day people, I'm Sharyn. Welcome to my channel. Don't you just love this design? Every year when I bring it out, there's somebody who just hasn't seen it before and adores it. It's made by a company called anitagooddesign.com and it's amazing. I stitched it out a long time ago and there are a few things that I'd like to tell you about today because I did things a little bit different. Just to be perfectly clear, I am in no way, shape or form associated with the company that made this. I just think it's a really, really great design. What I would like to show you is how my Quilt as you go method can be applied to things like this to give an easier result when you're trying to join tiled embroideries together. The design is called Santa's Ride and there's a lot of digitizing in here. Well and truly worth the money that you spend to buy the 20 tiles. You don't have to do them in exactly the colors that are stipulated in the design, but you do need to make sure you've got enough of any particular color to be able to work it through all of the tiles. The ribbons around the reindeer need to be the same red throughout, otherwise it's going to look pretty peculiar. But you don't have to use the same red that they stipulate in the design. Just make sure you've got enough of whatever you're using to be able to do all the bits. Same with the water. It needs to be consistent. The path needs to be consistent. And there is actually a level of applique in this. So the moon is not all just white stitching. It's a piece of, or it's multiple pieces of fabric that are appliqued on. Same with the sleigh and the bag and the snow. Therefore, it doesn't require quite as much stitching as perhaps it looks like when you first look at it. But it's still a lot of stitching. In essence, when you're making a design like this, which is absolutely gorgeous, you are doing 20 separate designs on your embroidery machine. The instructions then have you put right sides together, stitch a seam and open it out. And as I recall, they also then said to do a fine satin stitch over the join. I've made this one a little bit different, and that's because I didn't find the satin stitch over the join method gave me the effect I wanted. If we look at it close up, you can see that I've used a 1/2 inch piece of fabric through my tape binder. It's black, it's got a little bit of a pattern on it, but it doesn't really matter. And I've used that to cover the joins, and that gives a lovely effect like you would have in a window. The original designs have got a square of stitching around them, not unlike my embroidery designs for quilting. The difference is that they are recommending that you lay the right sides together and join those squares along the stitching. And that is really, really hard to do. It's very hard to get things to match up perfectly, to get both sides to go through perfectly. It is difficult. What I would suggest you do instead is to cut them out similarly to how I do with my Quilt as you go method, just outside the square of stitching. The difference is, normally I would say 1/4 of an inch or just under 1/2 an inch or something like that. With this one you need to cut it close to that outside stitching, but then you're going to do exactly the same thing that I do with Quilt as you go. Butt them up together and zigzag over that join. If you zigzag with a width of 5 and a length of 2, it will hold it nice and firmly together, and you should be able to adjust things because you can see both tiles at the same time. And then the tape is going over the join, so that stitching, that zigzag stitching, won't be seen. This fabric here that I used for the sky has got some little stars and sort of galaxy type prints to it. This is metallic thread, and it's part of the embroidery for doing that square, along with some of these stars. Here, bottom half of that reindeer, once again, this is part of the embroidery design, as are some of these stars, but that one is actually part of the fabric that I chose for my background. You can see the beautiful directional digitizing to give a fur-like effect. Now we can see Santa. These parts of Santa's sleigh are applique, so there's a red fabric there. The green leaves are embroidered on top of that. I used a metallic thread for the trim on the sleigh, and there are some places where I used metallic thread in the design as well. If you're going to use a metallic thread, try to make sure that you have it at a distance from your machine so that it's got plenty of time to unwind before it gets to the machine. Really good quality metallics work nicely. This one is a fairly open stitch, and it's come out as a nice effect in the sky. The moon is appliqued on into 4 different parts of the design. So 4 different tiles have got part of the moon in, and in each case this white fabric is appliqued on. One of the reasons I prefer to do this with the 1/2 inch tape in between is that that one didn't line up perfectly. It's a pretty good line up there, but it missed here, and that 1/2 inch means that your eye is not attracted by that bit where it's not quite perfect. Here we're looking at the bottom part of Santa's sack. These twirly bits are part of the fabric that I used there, that I appliqued on. These bits are part of the embroidery. You can see here there's a bunch of stars that were on the background fabric, and a couple that happen to be in that position on the embroidery, and that gives a nice little set of stars all in together. Here you can see perhaps better that this is metallic thread. Once again, the white here is the main fabric. There's a bit of blue appliqued on here, a bit of the sky fabric. The town has come out beautifully. I've used a metallic thread around those. I don't know what it said in the design because it's a long time since I made this, but you can actually have some good fun with some of those metallic threads. And here you can see my final piece of 1/2 inch tape around the design to look like what the effect you would have with a window pane with small pieces of glass in it. And my lucky find of a timber looking fabric for the window frame. I'll generally do embroideries like this with some sort of wadding behind it. It doesn't have to be a very full wadding, but a light wadding will make the design seem richer rather than very, very flat, which it would be if it was just on tearaway. After I had all 20 tiles together and I had done the lead strips in between, I wanted to make it look like a window, and I was lucky enough to have found a fabric that looks like timber. When I was making my timber window frame, there's a few things I did. Although you can't really see it there, This has got thicker wadding in it, and that means that the frame stands out a bit in the same way that a window frame does from the window. Also, I mitered the corners, because if a carpenter was putting a window frame in, they would generally miter the corners too. I also had to put strips of the same black that I used in here around the edges. Once I had put my window frame on, I put a backing on and a hanging sleeve. I made the hanging sleeve a bit wider, and I like to use a piece of flat timber in there to hang it up so that it's not hanging out from the wall. Makes it look more like a real window. It's a wonderful design, and if you see a wood print anywhere and you're interested in this kind of idea, grab hold of some of the fabric, because when you want it you'll never be able to get it again, but it makes a fabulous window frame. See you next time.